Tired of being told you can only vote for Republicans or Democrats? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, happy Wednesday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on The Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you live from our Stratus IP studios here in lovely Eastern Indiana. Don't let cyber attacks or outdated business technology put your company at risk. Learn more at briannicholsshow.com/Stratus IP. Yeah, Republicans, Democrats, that's all you can vote for. Well, what if you are one of the quite literally millions of Americans out there who are tired of being told that you must vote for one of these old, archaic political systems? Are you tired of hearing that maybe voting for a third party is a wasted vote? Heck, are you just tired altogether with the duopoly? Well, if you are like, yes, one of those millions of Americans, then you're going to love today's episode, because we are going back to a conversation we had with Brad Lyon, where we said it's time to party. Not just it's time to party, we said let's party, because we're talking about his brand new documentary called Let's Party, which is talking about tackling and taking down the duopoly. Yes, if you get value from today's episode, well, be sure to go ahead and give today's episode a share. Stick around afterwards. We'll go ahead and wrap things up. But with that being said, on to our re-air of our awesome episode with Brad Lyon here on The Brian Nichols Show.
Hey, it's great to be here. I appreciate you guys taking the time and helping us spread the word.
Absolutely. Well, spreading the word is the absolute goal here of the Brian Nichols Show. Our mission is to educate, enlighten, and inform, and what we're trying to do, sell some liberty, and that's exactly what you're doing over at your amazing new movie, and it is Let's Party, focusing on how us pesky third-party folks out there can actually, make a difference in the world, and in this case, promote liberty, which is the goal here of the Brian Nichols Show. But that being said, Brad, let's kind of do a quick intro, though, before we start talking about Let's Party. Obviously, you must have some political leanings to be doing a more overtly third-party movie focusing on liberty. So kind of introduce yourself to the audience and what got you wanting to do this awesome brand new movie, Let's Party.
Well, there's no mistaking the fact that I do have my own political leanings in a certain manner. But with that being said, what's important for the sake of me creating a quality film is to not let the bias of my own views get into it. The job of this film isn't about one party. It's not about the libertarians. It's not about the Greens. It's simply about giving a voice to all parties. As a matter of fact, it's not even truly anti-Republican or anti-Democrat. For the most part, I believe in, every member of their party should have a chance to have their voice heard too. The problem for, their own parties is, in the case of their parties, they don't even get to have their voices barely heard anymore. For them, it's not so much about let us do what our party members, our constituents want, as it is let us just scare you into having to vote for us no matter what. There was years ago where when you watched the campaign was truly about, here's my platform, here's how I plan to attempt to make a change, whether that is the case or not. Today it's about, you absolutely can't vote for that other guy. You have to vote, you have to show up, you have to vote for me. And when it comes to, even voting third parties, the old adage is now, if you vote for a third party, you're voting for the other candidate, which is obviously completely ignorant. But when they spend so much time and money and effort selling that concept to their own constituents, and as a constituent, you become locked into the belief that your party is telling you the truth because you want them to be telling you the truth. You want to be on the same team, and if you're on the same team, your captain isn't going to be misleading you. So you truly try and convince yourself that they're really being honest with you. And that's really what Let's Party is about. It's about simply providing factual evidence of what the two major parties do to suppress third parties. And when you take a look at the actual factual evidence of what happens in our country, you realize, we've got two major parties who are simply suppressing third-party voices, and these voices could actually be of value. And most importantly, simply having more options would force the major parties to do their job, because you'd be forced to actually succeed at the things you're doing, or you would be replaced. Because as long as there's only, two strong parties, it's very easy to point at the other one and be like, hey, you might not like the fact we haven't made any significant change. You might not like the fact that we haven't did all the things we promised to do, but you don't want to vote for that evil one on the other side, so there's no choice. That's why it's all about trying to give a choice.
Well, and right there, right, giving a choice, creating options in the marketplace. And, if we're going to, be the libertarians that we are here at the Brian Nichols Show, because by and large, our audience is predominantly libertarian. But, that being said, it is on us to have to kind of play this thorn in the side role, but also we do have an uphill battle. And I don't think a lot of people realize, Brad, that it really is a stacked deck against him. I had Mark Walczyk, who was on the show, and he's an assemblyman up in New York. He's a Republican, but he's more libertarian leaning in his political leanings and such. But he was saying how, in this brand new bill for New York State, they're trying to sneak in, bills basically wiping out third parties. And people don't realize, this is the part that it does make me so frustrated, is because the two major parties do this behind secret, dark, smoke-filled rooms. And when it happens, your average person's like, wait, what? Really? And they have no idea that it took place, because I can't believe, Brad, I think your average person, they're not really politically aware like your average political junkie is, right? They're kind of just, passively aware, if not just kind of living their own life. They're not really focused on who, I forget who it was. I think it was Jay Leno used to do a thing where they'd bring somebody, or like a man on the street segment, and they would send somebody out to ask, who's the Speaker of the House? And they would have, no idea. Who's the Vice President? And they would have no idea. Who's the President? They're asking during the Bush administration, and they're like, Reagan? Clinton? But here's the thing. That's not untypical, right? Your average person is pretty just there. Like they live their life, and they're just focused on putting food on the table, right? Kind of going from point A to point B, going through the motions, and they don't see this, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, really. They have created this big, gigantic Leviathan, but it's just being held up by these two archaic, and I would say very backwards in the types of their policies, parties in the traditional duopoly that is the GOP and the Democrats. I'm curious, Brad. I say all that because obviously, it's an issue. We identify the issue, and you're offering an alternative solution to said issue, but we still see the GOP and the Democratic Party, respectively, holding on to a very firm base of Americans, somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50%, who will end up casting their vote for either the red team or the blue team every 2 to 4 years. So I gotta ask you, right? How did we get here? How is it that we can identify this problem and call it the problem that it is, while the rest of America is so quick to jump on Team Red, Team Blue, despite this very obvious and very, shall we say, easy to understand basic fact?
Well, the reality is a lot of people just simply like being bandwagon supporters. A lot of times it's simply, I want to vote for the team that's going to win, not necessarily voting for the team that's going to support me or help me. So, when you look at mentality of this is the most likely winner, it's so much easier to be like, okay, look, I'm part of team winner. That doesn't mean a third party isn't necessarily a team loser, but the reality is the person who gets the most votes wins, and that's just the simplistic aspect of it. So, that's your first ideology you got to get over. But not to get into a religion topic, but if you think about yourself as, being born into a family, your family's going to have specific beliefs, especially religious beliefs. And quite often those things are going to be instilled on you from birth. So as you're raised in that process, you come to believe those things to be factual, even when there's not a strong foundation to base it on. So as you are born into that and you grow into that, your motivation is to find information that supports that ideology, not to dispute it. Let's Party isn't going to solve all the problems in the world by any means. Let's Party is simply actually being sent out, marketed to traditional voters, just simply to say, hey, look, let me bring some awareness to you. Let me inform you what your party's actually doing. And here's the funniest part, guys. They're not evil for that per se. When you're a campaign manager or your job is, you're hired as part of a political party to basically create a foundation of success, you're simply out there doing your job. They're just doing their job well. Heck, the biggest lie that they're making people believe is the fact that they're the original parties. They're not actually the original parties. They were third parties who managed to do this. And now what they're doing is they're saying, hey, this is how we got there. Let's paint what we did as being not possible. Let's do the exact opposite and convince people what we did just can't happen, even though we're literally living proof. Republicans and Democrats are both living proof that third parties can succeed.
Well, not only that, it speaks to just the value of an open and free marketplace, right? And it's funny, I was just over on Mark Claire's Lions of Liberty, sneak behind the Patreon wall because this episode hasn't aired yet. But you were talking about this, right? Your average person is a Pepsi or Coke person.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big group of RC Cola people out there. And it's funny, we were on the show and he looked on Facebook and there's groups out there dedicated to RC Cola. But guess what? Your average person still, if you say, hey, do you want a cola? They're going to say, sure. Yeah, Pepsi or Coke, right? And that's just the fundamental basic, reality of where we're at. But we know that if tomorrow Coca-Cola accidentally has a vat of their Coca-Cola kill 10 million people, guess who's going to go out of business pretty fast? Coca-Cola.
Well, you would think, but heck, we're a country where we poison our own people like we did in Flint, and we're still voting for the people that poisoned the people.
Well, and there you go, right? So you're from Flint. I was doing some research and I saw that, and you get to see firsthand that, well, when there isn't an option for, the government to compete against someone who can offer a better service, or in your case, just not poison their constituents, well, guess what? There's nobody to really hold that government accountable. And in the marketplace, if it's a Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, well, then guess what? Probably the next best flavored soda that's closest to Coke is going to fill that void in the interim while a competitor joins the marketplace. And that speaks to, going to your point for Let's Party, right? That speaks to the value that these third parties are bringing to the table. And we see this especially in the liberty movement, right? You look at Republicans who will talk a good game or give at least lip service to the concepts and ideas of liberty, but then you actually have libertarian candidates who are running like unabashedly libertarian. And if you're in an area where that libertarian is speaking to the libertarian issue that's actually a hot button issue for your community, like maybe it's privatizing trash collection service, right? Because the city's been dropping the ball on collecting their trash, like we saw here happen in my home city in Philadelphia. We went, I think it was 4.5 weeks without trash being collected at one point during the peak of the pandemic. So if you're the rabid libertarian and you make that your one issue, well, guess what? You can now push the Republican candidate more towards that issue because either they have to take that more libertarian approach to it, or they're going to have to yield it to you. And that's going to actually push some people away from you in casting your vote. So again, it speaks to just the overall value of this open and free competitive marketplace, because it will incentivize people to, number one, do better, but number two, actually stand by what they're saying they're supposed to do.
I don't disagree with that one bit. One of the things too we have to remember, regardless what third party we belong to, is the absence of not marketing specifically to the major parties. We have to market to Republicans. We have to market to Democrats. We actually have to go out and do what they used to do in the 50s and 60s, and that's actually campaign based on a platform. But also, I like your aspect of, the single topic issue there is, there's a lot of opportunity to push for specific change in specific areas that people want. Your average voter only becomes politically motivated in the United States because one particular topic wound up hitting them directly. We were talking about it right off the bat. Most person isn't politically minded. They wind up interested simply because they have one particular topic that's hitting close to home, and then they go out and find the party that's, supporting that particular topic. Otherwise, they stay home. People don't vote in the United States. We do a horrible job of showing up. And to top it off, we do a horrible job of motivating the independent voter. The largest voting body is not Republican or Democrat. Even now, even after this horrible election we just had, the largest registered voting number is independent registered voters, not Republican or Democratic voters. The people exist to actually vote for alternatives. You just have to motivate a populace to actually believe in that. And the simplistic concept of motivating a populace begins with advertising and marketing to them. One of the things I often see fail by a lot of third-party candidates is they push their marketing, they push their speeches, they push their reach out to their own registered supporters and not outside of it. And I hate to tell you, even just talking to the Libertarian Party, You only have 600 and some thousand registered voters that are libertarian registered voters in the United States. Last time I checked, that's not going to beat 70 million.
Correct. And if I were to go to a libertarian group and I were to say, talk to me about civil asset forfeiture, or I go, tell me about the non-aggression principle, I would say 9 times out of 10, there would be a reply on there, a chain of people telling me exactly what it was in a heartbeat, right? Mm-hmm. If you go to your average person and you say, what's the non-aggression principle? They're going to say, the what? And you say, what's your thoughts on civil asset forfeiture? And they're going to say, what's that?
Exactly.
And that is, it speaks to, you're almost talking a different language, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've been trying to promote is meeting people where they're at. And this actually goes beyond just talking about the issues that the people are having, in their lives. And, whether it's that bed bug issue, how are we putting food on the table, little things like that, right? But also, when we are able to enter into the conversation in the medium that they're most familiar with, and you're approaching it through a cultural approach using, in this case, film. And I think that's exactly an approach we not only need to take, but if we don't take it, we're actually going to be going backwards, because here's the dirty little secret. The other two parties, they are infiltrating the culture through film, through whatever media forum it can be. I mean, goodness, Ben Shapiro just did a feature film. Come on.
I mean, we've got 2 major box office films that were literally oriented around the concept of elections. That just came out with the past couple of years. They spend the money constantly creating high production value media. Now, when the common person starts Googling on their computer, right? When they start typing and they're searching for their particular issue, their one issue that's making them decide, all right, maybe I will go ahead after I've not been listened to it by my fellow Republicans, or have not been listened to by my fellow Democrats, and I'm going to go ahead and just, for the shits and giggles, I'm going to take a look at the Green Party, or I'm going to take a look at the Libertarians or the ASP. And they start to take a look at them. And then they're looking for media, because guess what? We're simplistic people, especially your typical your traditional voter. So they're looking for a piece of media that they can watch, a movie they can watch, something they can watch. And if we continually show them these low-end pieces where these people will think like, wow, this is the best example this party has, obviously they don't even take themselves seriously. And when you use that type of example, you will never motivate a traditional voter. That's why Let's Party is so important on a certain level, is the fact it's giving third parties quality media that gives a contrasting and educated view on the situation without shoving the message down their throat. We're actually going out, we're creating a narrative film that's a hybrid documentary. It's not some pure boring documentary, because here's the reality. Most people couldn't give a shit less about watching documentary. There's a few million people in America who's going to go out and watch one every now and then. And there's 500,000 people that's going to be dedicated. But guess what? 500,000 people doesn't win elections. But there are millions of people that will watch a narrative film. And that's why this film is a narrative film that simply takes people on a voyage with the central character, where he goes out and says, hey, are third parties actually viable alternatives? And if so, could they actually win? What if we actually did support them? What if we did actually just simply show up and vote? Is that all it actually takes? Answering and fulfilling those simplistic questions to a traditional voter changes a traditional voter's mentality instantly, because all of a sudden we're like, oh, wait a second. Yes, I heard this and this and this, but here's a couple just plain black and white facts. And knowing these black and white facts, maybe it's worth supporting a candidate that believes in my views.
Yeah, well, right there, right? Maybe it's worth supporting a candidate that actually supports my views. How often do we actually hear people be able to say that? Actually, it's funny you say that. I had Ian Dunt on my show. Ian, he is from the UK. He's a regular over on BBC. And he's what you would consider more of a classical liberal in the most classical of sense. And when I had him on my show, he had a very interesting quote. It struck me funny, because I never really thought about it. But he goes, in his British accent, he goes, Brian, I'm not even going to try to do a British accent, so I'm going to butcher it. But he goes, I've never had the luxury of voting for someone that I like, but rather I entirely vote on trying to prevent the worst possible outcome. And my goodness, I mean, how powerful is that when it hits you? Because it makes you really all of a sudden take a step back and think, your average person probably thinks the exact same way, because they look at Trump as Orange Hitler, and they looked at Biden as, the second coming of, Mao's, great cultural leap forward over in China, only here in the United States. So naturally, both sides of the political aisle are looking at the other side as the greatest boogeyman possible. So they're voting entirely out of fear. Now, me as the sales guy, right? I know entirely emotion sells, and then people rationalize that with logic and reason. So I'm always trying to think, okay, well, how can we focus on the emotions that are going to sell the most? And unfortunately, the emotions that do sell the most right now are fear. So I hear your average person, I hear Ian Dunt saying the things that, just reaffirm what we know to be true. Emotion sells, and fear is the most intense emotion. So if it's not fear, it's love, right? So let me ask you this. If we're losing the fear game, and we will lose the fear game, because right now the people who have the control are the ones that have the guns, right? So
let me
go ahead,
off there for 1 second before you go further on that. We're not losing a game we're not even playing.
Amen.
We have to sign up and participate.
Yes.
We're not participating. We're shit right now, okay? The reality is we're not playing the game. We're talking to our handful of our own voters, not with no intention of actually believing we're going to win.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Our candidates are not going out there battling. Matter of fact, our campaign plans are some of the most ridiculous plans I've ever seen. And I hate to tell you guys this, I'm from that world. I spent almost a decade representing and winning for candidates. All right. Here's the difference. I ran campaigns that won. And the reality is none of these campaigns are trying to win. They have no interest in trying to win. They're just adding their social popularity in their tiny little circle. Not to attack a particular candidate or a particular plan, but driving a bus around a country to places like Alaska, hoping that we'll somehow win over votes in particular states that there's absolutely no chance of, turning electoral by staying there for one day. That is not campaigning to win. It's not really that complicated to even potentially, be competitive. When there's three or more potential parties, which you have to look at yourself as a candidate each time as three or more suddenly, because there's already the two. So all of a sudden, you no longer have to win 270, 280 electorals. You don't, because there's a multitude of you. You simply have to get your larger base of a third. So now that you know that mathematically, they've actually set up the board for you brilliantly. You can thank the Democrats and Republicans. They've isolated a whole bunch of states that you don't need to take the time to and go win, because you can't. But there's a whole bunch of states that have a massive independent voter base, that have a massive both blue and red base that fluctuate consistently year in and year out. And if you spent the time showing up to those states, spending the limited dollars that we do have, advertising in those states so that they actually hear your words, and you show up and you talk to Democratic and Republican potential voters as well as those independent voters, you have a shot, because you don't have to win 50 states. You have to win 15 when there's 3 to plus parties. And it can be done, but not when you're doing ridiculously stupid campaigns.
And you have to focus on the issues people care about, right? So let's take, for example, something that's close to home for you, right? If somebody were to run for office in Flint, Michigan, under the, listen, we're actually going to solve this crisis. We're going to solve the Flint, Michigan water crisis. That would be huge, because you guys are going on nearly a decade now with this being a problem. And that would be astronomical in terms of building credibility with not just that constituency base, but establishing some credibility as a not just a group of people in an ideology, but in a party in this case. Because, here's the reality. People are looking for that resume, for better or for worse. And right now, we really, if you're, a third party candidate in general, we don't really have too many people we can point to as successful candidates with that resume until they're, they build up the resume within that two-party system, and then they decide to, jump ship, usually in the last, parts of their career, which is great. Like, if you want to go out in the principled stance, that's awesome. And I encourage people to do that. If you're a part of the major two parties, then by all means, take that step, because it does require us to have the people who do have that cred, right, to take the step first. Because the average person, they are kind of looking to be, guided at the very least to the right direction, or what they think is the right direction. That's why, for better or for worse, celebrities have so much credibility, right? And because people have this emotional tie to them when they watch their movies, I used this analogy last week. They look at Tom Hanks and they're like, I trust Tom Hanks. I feel that when Tom Hanks says he has a snake in his boot, my goodness, he does. And as the person seeing Tom Hanks now saying, I support Joe Biden. And I was like, well, I must support Joe Biden because I like Tom Hanks, right? And that's, political folks, we're like, that's insane. But your average person is like, yeah, I get it. Like, I like them as a person. Like, that actually means something to people. Mm-hmm. And we have to, instead of saying it shouldn't be that way, we'll stomp our feet and we'll put our fingers in our ears and we'll scream until we're blue in the face. Instead of saying that, we have to acknowledge it, right? And we have to play that game. So I'm going to say this as we go for the end of the show here. You're in film. You're in the industry, right? I've been trying to think of a way that we can get past this kind of roadblock that is this celebrity roadblock, right? And just always being told, the ideas of really individual liberty are bad, right? We need some people, I think, to stand up in the culture. And I'm curious, just based on your kind of knowing probably the industry better than 99.9% of the listeners here in the Brian Nichols Show, including yours truly. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. What do you think could be maybe some cultural leaders that we could start to point to and raise up as we move forward here, trying to actually make some substantive change moving forward?
Well, I'm about to break your heart here. I would love to pretend there's a list of people who are gung-ho and ready to go to battle. But one of the toughest decisions that I faced in my filmmaking career was moving forward with going ahead and doing this movie. Because in the world of entertainment, your political views can be a death sentence. Los Angeles in and of itself is highly a Democratic, highly a blue region. If you speak out against the Democratic vote in that area, you're ostracizing yourself. It's far even worse if you're going to do something crazy like make a film that supports third parties. I mean, heck, I lost a directing gig for this year the moment, and for a reasonable reason. I don't disagree with them. They came to me and said, hey, look, we're paying you to do this film. You're not going to make crap of money doing this movie. It seemed more logical for you to take this gig. It's not that they were anti the views of the film. The reality is they don't want to chance their movie coming out with me attached as the director with the concept that I'm the guy who directed the third party movie. I understood their perspective. I'm not angry at them. I've also lost small investors on which are my normal group of teams as I produce each various film. We have small investors and they combine to finance our film. I've had some of them back out on us because of this. And they gave me the ultimatum. Just don't do the movie. We love being part of your team. Just don't do it. And I had to think about that for a minute. And that's why, to answer your question, there's not a lot of them out there. There's really not, because the majority of the ones that are very polarized. And that's simply by having an opinion. The Roseanne Barrs of the world, a lot of these people out there, their careers got destroyed when they decided to share their political beliefs. I mean, you can't find a red entertainer that's a major mainstream celebrity anymore. Tim Allen isn't even anymore, for Pete's sake, because he, believes the way he believes. So I would love to be able to say, here's a list. And I'll tell you what, our industry is very close knit. Even a little guy like me who's been a producer on 30 plus films, I've met most everyone along the way because we're nomadic. And when I might not be a director on something, maybe I was a PA on something, and I've had a lot of interactions with amazing, fantastic individuals who are opinionated, but at the same time know that their job and their career is on the line if they take that shot. So there's not a lot that'll jump out. The reality is we have to make it safer for them. We have to be willing to be a little less uptight, a little less vulgar to every single person from the outside the group. We have to be the friendly and inviting groups to where supporting the friendly and inviting thing doesn't make them seem so evil or polarized to the other sides, And right now we don't do a good job of that. Right now there's a lot of people in some specific parties that prefer to never worry about winning. They just want to be able to bitch about what they believe in. They don't care about advancing. They just want to be able to complain.
Oh, wow. Every single libertarian just went, wow, is he talking about us? And I think everybody's
I sure was.
Everybody's ears are starting to ring collectively. But how about this? We'll wrap up on a call to action, right? Because it is indicative on us to make sure we're going out of our way to not just engage in more, more civil discourse, more empathetic discourse, engaging with people we wouldn't normally engage with, right? But it's also important that we support folks out there in the media who are taking a stand, doing things differently, and leading by example, which, Brad Lyon, of course, you are doing. Let's Party. Where can folks go ahead and follow this, my friend? Obviously, we want to make sure we lead people to go ahead and give it some eyeballs. So where can folks go ahead and find this brand new awesome film?
Well, the easiest way right off the bat right now is simply go to letspartymovie.com. As many of you guys know, we actually were running an Indiegogo campaign for a while. And here's the great news from that front. Right before the end date of the campaign, we wound up so viral and so popular for a minute, we became the #1 crowdfunding film in Indiegogo in the world for a day, then the #1 creative film in the world for a day, number 14th overall in the world for a day or two. And that enabled us to go in demand. So our campaign is actually still up and running because Indiegogo came to us and said, hey, you guys did a great job. You're popular. We're going to keep, running, which is fantastic because we still need the support. Your average film from the year 1999 to 2018, the average movie made in the United States and Canada was made for $18 million. I'm making a movie right now for less than $50,000. So to come out here and make a quality film and be competitive and make something high end, it's very tough on that budget. So anytime you can go out and go to letspartymovie.com and buy a t-shirt or get your name in the credits or do something that helps support this movie, it gives myself and my crew a better shot of making a great film. And that's all that we're asking, just support those people who are willing to go out there and fight for you. Just like supporting Brian's show here. He's out here trying to be a voice, giving people like myself a chance to be heard. So please, support Brian's show, tune in. If there's contributions to the show or sponsors, sponsor his shows too, because we need media willing to put our voices out so we can be heard. The one great thing about this film is we won't be so reliant on third parties spreading the word. We'll have the ability of, having it on Amazon Prime, on being able to share it to a vast audience. And then it's just going to come down to if the film's quality enough that people want to, watch it, support it, or if they can digest the message enough. And with that being the case, I'm very hopeful that it makes an impact. So please check out letspartymovie.com, support all those other podcasters like Brian out here, doing their part to get the word out there.
Man.
Oh, by the way, I haven't been in Flint in a long time, so please don't, for the audience out there, I'm not a Michigan resident anymore. I don't mean to imply that. It's been nearly, closing on a decade since I lived there.
Well, hey, but it's still home sweet home, I'm sure. Because I know I'm from the middle of nowhere, upstate New York, and it's still home sweet home to me. I actually just had, as I was saying, my Assemblyman Mark Walczak on the show, and being able to talk about these kind of issues with people, and again, talking about people who actually can make a difference, right? And that's where it starts, is being able to have these conversations. And to your point, right, it's supporting the people who are going out there and trying to be the difference makers, right? And yes, this is a labor of love. We don't do this just for, the rolling in cash. And I'm still waiting for my Coke bucks to make it to my bank account. Still haven't gotten the right routing number yet, I guess. But, we still need to make sure that we are supporting each other. So with that being said, what I'll make sure I do, Brad, is I include all the links to not only Let's Party, but also all the other work you've been doing over there. You've been doing phenomenal work. Thank you for all the work, helping raise awareness, getting more folks aware that, yes, third parties are not just out there, but also a viable option to make things better. Brad Lyon, Let's Party. Thank you so much for joining the Brian Nichols Show.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up our conversation back in January 2021 with Brad Lyon. Actually, I was right in the process of moving at that time. It was crazy time. Yeah, we're almost going on a year now that I've been away from Philadelphia. Gosh, it's been great. If you are in a blue city and you are a liberty lover, please do yourself a favor. Get out of the blue city. Surround yourself with people who share like-minded goals and values and actually have a similar vision on how society should maybe function. You live in those blue cities. It gets pretty pretty rough, pretty quick. And also, your tax dollars will thank you. I can guarantee that. But with that being said, no, folks, if you got some value from our episode today, well, do me a favor. Go ahead and give today's episode a share. And also, if you had not had the chance yet, go back and check out our nearly 643 other episodes here of The Brian Nichols Show, going all the way back to January 2018. Lots of valuable content, but do so quickly because come January 2023, there's a couple of things are going to be changing. Amongst them, some of our older episodes will be going behind the Patreon paywall, as well as here on our YouTube as well. So make sure, if you've not had the chance yet, you go ahead, hit that download all unplayed episodes while you still can, while they're still in the public feed. Because, we are going to be changing some things up here as we go towards 2023. We'll talk about that in a future episode here next week as we wrap things up for the year. But otherwise, guys, that's all I really had for you today. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and follow yours truly on social media and let me know about it. Find me on Twitter and Facebook at bnicholsliberty. And by the way, you want to go ahead and get in touch with me, email me, brian@briannicholsshow.com. By the way, the holidays are here. If you had not had the chance yet to go ahead and get that special present for that freedom fanatic or liberty lover in your life, well, go ahead and check out our awesome store at briannicholsshow.com/shop. We have our Magic Money Tree shirt, What Happened in 1971 shirt, Michael Scott 2024, and more. Backpacks, lawn signs, bumper stickers, you name it, we have it over at our shop at briannicholsshow.com. And by the way, if you get one of our awesome goodies there at the shop, do me a favor, go ahead and take a pic of yourself wearing or rocking the new merch and send it to me. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put some of you guys up, not just on our social media, but also we're going to go ahead and put you guys up on the Proud Libertarian website, which is the hosting store of our shop there at briannicholsshow.com/shop. So if you want to go ahead and see yourself, be the face of some merch here for the program, send me your pics over at brian@briannicholsshow.com. All right. Other than that, that's all I really had for you. Did you check out, by the way, before we wrap things up, our awesome conversation that we had yesterday? We had Gen Z as the topic of conversation, and with that, chair of the Libertarian Youth Caucus, Theodore Gherkin. He's joining us from California. Make sure you check that episode out. If you're joining us here on the video version of the show, I'll make sure I include that right here somewhere on the bottom of the screen. And by the way, we do have a video version of the show for you folks who are joining us on the podcast version of the show, YouTube, Rumble, or Odyssey, wherever it is. Just do me a favor, hit that little notification bell. And also that little subscribe button so you don't miss a single time we go live. All right, that's all I got for you guys. Hit that subscribe button so you're not missing a single time we go live. But with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show. We'll see you tomorrow.
Listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.